Some footage is never meant to be watched, but it's too late for me. And maybe for you too. That's when I saw it. A post buried in a comment thread, a link with no preview. No explanation, just a single word typed underneath. Iceberg. I've seen iceberg charts before. The kind that map out internet mysteries, conspiracy theories, creepy stories, stacked in layers from harmless rumors at the top to unspeakable horrors at the bottom. I thought it was one of those. Some harmless fun, the kind of thing you laugh at and forget about. But this wasn't a chart. This was footage. Raw, unfiltered clips stacked like a living, breathing iceberg, one layer leading to the next, dragging me deeper each time. At first, I laughed. It looked like a poorly made compilation. Grainy security cam glitches. Strange clips that could have been explained away with editing tricks. But even then, something about it felt wrong. The cuts didn't feel random. The sequence wasn't accidental. Each clip pulled me lower, like stepping off a ledge and realizing too late that you've left solid ground behind. Most people never go past the tip. They see the viral stories, the spooky urban legends that bounce around forums, and they stop there. They get to walk away with their curiosity satisfied, their sleep undisturbed. But me, I didn't stop. I kept watching, kept following the thread, and before I knew it, I was staring at things I can't unsee. And now I'm here, trying to put it into words, even though I know I shouldn't, because once you know about the footage, once you've seen what I've seen, it doesn't let you go. So if you're listening, consider this your warning. You're standing at the edge of the iceberg. I've already fallen in. When people talk about an iceberg online, they usually mean a chart, a pyramid of knowledge, where the most well-known facts sit comfortably on the surface, while the strange and obscure secrets sink into darker depths. The deeper you go, the harder it gets to tell if what you're seeing is real or not. But this wasn't a chart. It was an archive, a structure made of clips, each one a jagged shard of glass, stacked in a way that made you wonder who, if anyone, built it, and why. At the surface, it's almost laughable. You get the kind of clips people pass around on Reddit or TikTok. The classic creepy videos, the ones that pop up on every compilation list, like the grainy footage of the backroom liminal spaces that look like endless yellow hallways, buzzing fluorescent lights flickering as if someone left reality's maintenance unfinished. Or that infamous dashcam clip where a deer's eyes glow unnaturally bright before it bolts into the forest. Even the old viral ghost elevator prank from Brazil, half comedy, half creep factor, was tucked into the first layer, as if easing you in with things you'd already seen 100 times. But underneath, things start to shift. I noticed that even in those harmless clips, there were details that didn't belong. A figure standing too far in the background of the liminal space footage, perfectly still between the frames. A shape in the tree line of the dashcam video that shouldn't have been there. Even the prank videos carried a strange tension, like the victims weren't just scared of the setup but of something else lurking in the dark. It was like someone had taken the familiar clips we all know and subtly corrupted them. And the further I clicked, the clearer it became. These weren't random uploads. They were layered deliberately, stacked like sediment, leading you downward. Think of it like a trap disguised as entertainment. At first, it hands you nostalgia, urban legends, and internet folklore you've already digested. But then it drags you deeper, clip by clip, until the ground under you starts to dissolve, and you realize the iceberg isn't a map of knowledge at all, it's a descent. The strange thing is, most people stop there. They'll scroll past, watch a few layers for the thrill, then laugh and move on. For them, it's nothing more than internet horror campfire stories repackaged for clicks. But for the few who keep going, the ones stubborn enough, curious enough, or reckless enough to push past the fun parts, that's when the footage changes. That's when you stop laughing. I wish I had stopped at the surface when everything still felt like a joke, but I didn't. I couldn't. Because the truth is, those clips, the ones everyone knows, they were just bait. They were the polite mask, the decoy. but those were the parts anyone could stomach. The real iceberg goes far deeper. The first layer of the iceberg is almost comforting in a strange way. It's the territory most people willingly wander into, the kind of clips that make you raise an eyebrow, maybe shiver, but ultimately dismiss with a laugh or a shrug. They're the viral content you've already seen or the hoaxes that have been debunked 1,000 times. And yet, even here, something about the pattern nagged at me. The kind of feeling you get when you notice the same shadow in the corner of a room, again and again, and no one else seems to see it. Take the security cam footage, for example. On the surface, it's just another night shift recording, grainy and gray. People walking past, doors swinging, the occasional flicker of light. But in the background, sometimes just for a frame or two, you'll see a shadow. Not a person, not even clearly humanoid, but a figure that seems to exist solely to observe. Most dismiss it as a glitch, a trick of light, or a poorly edited prank. I wanted to, too, but there was something in the way it moved. Not quite like a human, but deliberate, watching, waiting, like it had learned to be ignored. Then there were the abandoned mall clips. Empty hallways echoing with distant sounds that didn't belong, a child's laugh, static-laced voices, faint footsteps that never moved from one side of the frame to the other. The camera pans slowly, catching signs of decay, scattered debris, fluorescent lights flickering, and then the audio distorts. Not like a technical glitch, but like it's trying to speak. Sometimes I swear the voices are whispering names, calling me out in the silence. Every time I rewound the footage, it felt like the audio shifted, just enough to say something new, something I couldn't fully grasp. And the children's TV shows. Oh, those were the creepiest in their subtlety. Clips uploaded to obscure forums, low race, often cut short. On the surface, nothing unusual. A talking cartoon character, brightly colored backgrounds, a cheerful jingle. But in the glitches between frames, the character's eyes would linger too long, staring straight through the screen. Sometimes the smile would falter just for a heartbeat, before snapping back into cheerful perfection. The dialogue would stutter, and if you listened closely, you could almost hear something else. Beneath the cheerful soundtrack, murmurs that didn't belong, phrases that made no sense but left a residue of unease in your chest. I told myself it was all harmless. Everyone else probably saw it that way too. The first layer is meant to lull you into complacency. It's the candy coating of fear, the parts you can comfortably share online, or discuss in hushed tones with friends without feeling the weight of it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that even here, in this supposedly safe territory, something was trying to communicate, or maybe just watching. The strangest part, patterns. Tiny coincidences that shouldn't have been there. Repeated shapes, sounds, or timing across multiple clips, stitched together in ways that suggested a connection. Harmless as the footage seemed, I began noticing them. The shadow figures in the security cams, echoing movements in the abandoned mall clips, the distorted voices in the malls matching the whispers in the children's shows. No one else noticed, or maybe no one else wanted to. I tried to laugh it off. I really did. I even sent some of the clips to friends, joking about fake haunted security cams and creepy cartoon glitches. But the more I looked, the more insistent the patterns became, tugging at my thoughts in the dead of night. It felt like the iceberg itself was nudging me forward, whispering, "There's more, if you dare to see it." And that was the problem. I was already too deep. Even in the surface layer, I could feel the edges of something darker bleeding through. The first layer was supposed to be harmless, but it was only bait, a way to ease me in. And that was the problem. I was already too deep. Even in the surface layer, I could feel the edges of something darker bleeding through. The first layer was supposed to be harmless, but it was only bait, a way to ease me in. And now, I was noticing that the harmlessest clips, The ones people dismissed as memes or hoaxes weren't as innocent as they seemed. They were the warning signs, small cracks in the foundation of reality that hinted at what lay beneath once you pass the first layer. The feeling of unease starts to twist into something sharper, heavier, and impossible to ignore. The harmless, surface-level clips begin to fade, replaced by footage that feels forbidden. These aren't the viral videos you can shrug off or laugh at. These are the kinds that were never meant to be seen, the kind that vanish from the internet as soon as someone notices them. And yet, somehow, I found them. Somehow, they found me. The first one I watched made my stomach knot and my hands tremble. A security camera in a quiet city street, nothing remarkable at first glance. A man in a gray coat walks along the sidewalk, seemingly ordinary, nodding at a passerby, adjusting his scarf. Then, mid-step, he disappears. 1 second, he's there. The next, the street is empty. No sound, no stumble, no trace of him being pulled away. Just gone. People might say it's a trick of the camera, editing, or poor frame timing. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But there was a subtle after-immediate shimmer, like heat waves above asphalt that lingered for a fraction of a second, hinting at something just beyond the lens. Something watching, deciding. Then there was the police dash cam footage. At first, it looked routine, 2 officers responding to a call on an empty highway. They radio in, joking about the quiet night. And I remember thinking, at least something normal. But then the audio continued after the visuals glitched. I could hear their voices faintly strained, calling each other's names, but their figures vanished from the frame entirely. The hum of the car, the static of the radio, even the squeak of the tires, it all carried on without explanation. And for a heartbeat, I thought I could hear my own voice whispering a question I hadn't asked. It was impossible, but it happened. And when I tried to find the clip again later, it was gone, vanished, just like that. The live stream was worse. A young man broadcasting casually from his bedroom, joking with viewers, when suddenly the screen froze. His eyes were wide, his mouth half open, and then a shadow moved across the frame from behind the camera, slow, deliberate, unrecognizable. The feed cut mid-sentence. No static, no error message, nothing to explain it. I rewound the few fragments I managed to save, and it felt like the shadow lingered there, in the playback itself, staring directly at me. My pulse raced, my chest tightened. I kept asking myself, why am I even watching this? I shouldn't be watching this. There's a reason these clips disappear. They're not just removed for copyright or policy. Violations, they vanish because someone or something doesn't want you to see them. And the more I tried to rationalize, the more impossible it became. Each clip carried a sense of quiet malevolence, a deliberate presence behind the lens, guiding the camera's eye. Someone or something was orchestrating what we were allowed to witness. I began noticing patterns in my own life. A shadow flickering in the corner of my room at night, just like the figure in the security cam. Voices on the radio or in white noise that sounded familiar, echoing words I hadn't yet spoken. The clips weren't just videos anymore, they were breadcrumbs, tracing a path straight into my thoughts, into my memories, into moments I thought were private. And every time I tried to warn myself to stop, to close the laptop, to leave the forums and forget what I had seen, I couldn't. The pull was too strong, too insistent, like a puzzle that demands completion. The iceberg was tugging at me, deeper and deeper. I know I shouldn't even be talking about this. I know the safer choice would be to look away, to pretend I never found the clips and return to normal life. But here's the truth. Once you see what I've seen, there's no undoing it. You can't unwatch the man who disappears mid-step, or the officers who vanish while their voices echo, or the live stream cut off by a presence you can't identify. It stays with you, it follows you, and sometimes late at night, I swear I can hear the faint static of those recordings leaking into the real world. And that's when I realized this layer wasn't just disturbing, It was intentional. Someone wanted these clips to be seen, to pull those curious enough into the next layer. And now, so was I. By the time I reached the third layer, the feeling of unease had transformed into something almost suffocating. The first 2 layers had been warnings, small bruises along the skin of my perception. This layer was different. It wasn't just footage, it was a presence. A force that pressed against the edges of my mind, daring me to look closer. These were the tapes that no one talked about openly. The clips traded in whispers on dark forums with passwords and invite-only threads. Grainy VHS recordings that felt older than they should, like they'd been hiding in basements and attics for decades, waiting for someone like me to stumble across them. The first tape I opened seemed almost innocuous. A family sitting in a living room, casually talking, laughing. The grainy quality gave it a home video warmth, a false sense of normalcy. But the more I watched, the more wrong it felt. Their movements were stiff, robotic, like marionettes with invisible strings. Conversations repeated themselves, words echoing a beat too late. Smiles flickering as if the camera was reading their emotions instead of capturing them. And then I noticed something that froze my blood. The youngest child, staring directly at the lens, whispering my name. Just my name. The syllables were soft, deliberate, intimate, not a random coincidence. I paused the tape, hands trembling, mind racing. That's when I remembered a message someone had sent me on one of the forums. Once you see it, it sees you too. I had laughed it off at the time, but now it rang with an unshakable dread. Every flicker on the screen felt like eyes, every shadow like hands reaching out. And I couldn't stop watching. I couldn't. Another tape was worse. It depicted a small-town street at night, completely deserted, except for figures moving inside houses. Families going about ordinary routines, yet everything was slightly off to synchronized. Too perfect, too calculated. Curtains swayed when there was no breeze. Lights flickered just before they should have. And a radio somewhere in the background played a distorted version of a children's song that seemed to call my own voice back at me. I paused it repeatedly, trying to convince myself it was a glitch, but no explanation fit. The sense of being watched wasn't in the footage, it was in me. Watching it, I felt my gaze returned, heavy and accusing. The worst tape was the one I almost can't describe. A single shot of a living room completely empty, save for a flickering television. The screen showed a mirrored version of my own room, or so it felt. The camera panned slowly, and I swear I saw my reflection. Not in the room, but in the tape itself. And then the whispers started again, faint at first, then clear enough to make my stomach coil. My name, over and over, just like the child in the first tape. I can't describe what I saw in that last frame, but you'll understand soon enough. It was like the footage itself had learned to wait, to anticipate, to pray. I began to feel a creeping paranoia outside the tapes. Shadows in my apartment moved in ways I hadn't noticed before. Electronic devices buzzed, turned on and off without explanation. Friends I contacted to share the clips ignored me, or their messages became delayed, garbled, distant. It was as if the Iceberg wasn't just a collection of media, it was a living, patient entity, and now I was a part of it. I have to stop pretending that I'm just narrating a story here. I can feel the frayed edges of my own sanity tugging at me. And I need you to understand something. What I've shown you isn't just content. It spreads like a virus, like a shadow creeping into every corner you thought was safe. And by listening, by watching, by even reading these words, you're already part of it. You're embedded in the iceberg now, whether you like it or not. I know you're thinking I'm exaggerating. That's what I'd tell myself if I weren't living it. But think back to the clips I described, the shadows, the voices, the moments that seem to respond to you. That's how the iceberg works. You don't have to open a Forbiddance link to feel it. You don't have to download a grainy VHS to be touched by it. It finds you. And if you're skeptical now, the iceberg smiles because curiosity always wins. Remember the elevator game? That old community joke about stepping into the elevator at midnight and following the rules. People laughed at it, but those of us who dabbled a little, even just for fun, don't you remember that eerie silence after the doors closed? The sense that someone else was in there. That was just the tip, a wink from the iceberg. And now I'm telling you the truth. This isn't just a story. Every comment you leave, every clip you've shared or stumbled upon adds threads to the web. I've seen it happen. People who thought they were safe suddenly noticing patterns in their own homes, in shadows, in static, in reflections. I can't describe how it feels to realize that. The iceberg doesn't end with the screen. It follows you, feeds off your attention, and waits. So, if you've seen something like this clips that shouldn't exist, moments that can't be explained, I want you to comment below. Tell me what you've noticed, share it. Because if there's any chance to make sense of this, it's by connecting with those of us who have survived the descent. And yes, I'm being serious. Don't dismiss this as just creepy internet stuff. I'm tired, paranoid, and borderline cynical at this point. But there's a part of me that wants to keep going, to keep digging, to keep documenting the iceberg, because someone has to, right? Someone has to see the patterns and survive long enough to warn the next person. And maybe, just maybe, there will be a part 2. If I'm still here to make it. If the iceberg hasn't claimed me completely. So remember, curiosity is a dangerous thing. It brought me this far, and it's already brought you here. Welcome to the iceberg. Closing. Like every other YouTube narrator, with a casual goodbye, a reminder to like and subscribe. And for a moment, I almost pretend it's safe to do so. Almost, but there's no safety here anymore. Not after the layers I've shown you. Not after the footage that follows you, waits for you, studies you. The iceberg doesn't care about polite endings. It only cares that you're aware. The last frame I saw, the one that will never leave my mind, is burned into me like a brand. It wasn't a person, or a shadow, or a glitch. It was me, or rather, it was you, or perhaps all of us. The footage shifted impossibly, seamlessly, until it was capturing the very room you're in right now. Every corner, every flicker of light, every device glowing faintly in the dark hit was all there, framed perfectly as if the camera had been inside your walls all along. And in that frame, a figure sits staring directly at the screen. Not just a silhouette, not just a reflection, but unmistakably watching. I can't tell you why or how this is possible. I can't tell you what that figure does next, because you might see it for yourself if you're still watching. But I can warn you that it's patient, and it knows exactly where to look. And I promise you this, the moment you think the iceberg has ended, the descent has paused, or that you're safe, there are layers beneath the layers. Depths I haven't touched, depths I may never touch. Because some things are meant to remain unseen. You get to decide if you'll go deeper. You get to choose whether curiosity wins, whether you peer beyond the safe surface once more, knowing that every frame, every shadow, every whisper might follow you home. And if you do, remember what I've told you. The iceberg doesn't wait politely. It drags you down, and it adapts, and it watches, and it learns. So, before you close this video, before you hit next, do one simple thing: check your reflection. That mirror, your screen, the darkened window pane, look closely, because it's already recording, and it's already aware. The footage never stops. And the iceberg, it's always waiting for the next set of eyes.